Hello lords and ladies and welcome to today's video. In my comments I did have somebody ask for battle tactic advice, as in how to move your men on the battlefield and what to do. This is a tough one to really hash out because tactics are incredibly important, formations are important and troop placement's important, but obviously every battle's different. The composition of troops is different, the tier of troops is different, the terrain's different. So I am going to run you through a quick battle just to show you what can actually be achieved with some correct application of tactics in relation to a standing fight. Now, I've picked the Aserai to play, and the reason I picked the Aserai is, one, I'm doing an Aserai playthrough at the moment on my other channel, Nightly Plays. It's tough, because their recruits are absolutely pants. A lot of their troops are not the best. If you look up any troop tier tree, you'll see the Aserai are very mid to low end troops, so it is difficult playing with them. But I've put them against the Empire, which I don't think anybody would really argue that they are probably some of the best troops in the game, especially the Legionnaires and the Imperial Cataphracts. They are incredibly powerful, incredibly strong. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fight a battle using tactics and show you what you can do just by a little bit of troop positioning and some very basic tactics. And I'll talk you through what I'm doing as I'm doing it. If you're very experienced in the game, you might not find this useful. If you're new to the game, you probably will find this very useful. One thing I'm going to change straight away, though, is I think they're just... Yeah, they're the heavy horsemen. We need the elite cataphracts. There we go. So, what I've done with the troops is there's no horse archers in here. The horse archers are a different breed of animal, and I'll talk about those in a different video another time. We've got the Aserai Vanguard Varys versus the Imperial Elite Cataphract. Toe-to-toe, the Imperial should win that fight easily. You've got the Imperial Palatine Guard versus the Aserai Master Archer. Again, the Palatine Guard's the better troop of the two. And then you've got a mix of Imperial Legionaries and Imperial Elevations versus Asari Veteran Infantry and Asari Palace Guard. So the Palace Guard I would probably say is better than the Imperial counterpart. Outside of that, every single one of those troops, if I did one of those videos where I just put 50 of them on one side, 50 on the other side, and made them charge each other, the Imperials would win 90% of the time in this particular setup. But this is what we're going to go with. So we've got quite an open field. Back here is probably the best place to fight. Nope. I've even put my commander on foot, so just to slow me down a little bit so I can liberate a horse at some point or another. So I've gone with a very heavy cavalry orientated army with some support from archers and infantry. What we're going to do with our infantry is we're going to put them here in a square formation. The reason we're using square is we know that our opponent is using cavalry. They're going to try and flank us. If we're using a square formation, there is no flank. Whichever way they look at us or come at us from, there's going to be a defensive perimeter for us. And we kind of, with this strategy I'm going to show you now, we kind of want them to get enveloped around the infantry to try and steamroll the infantry. And the infantry's job here is just to hold their ground. They're not really a damage-dealing element of this setup. They're more of a distraction piece. And you'll see more as we continue. So the archers we're going to split into two groups, so 50% in each group. So for you guys that are new, all you do is click on the cross and then select the type of troop that you want. We accidentally moved our infantry there. So we'll just reposition those. So bows, we want them in an angle facing the infantry. Now the point is here, we want these guys to be able to see the sides of the enemy. That's where the damage is going to come from. So make sure the angle's nice. So we can get shots now to the side of the guys. As they turn to face the infantry, we should be able to shoot most of them in the back. Then we're going to do the same thing with the other group on the other side. Get us a nice deep angle. See if they're matched up. That's close enough. Now, we don't want them to protrude any further forward than the infantry. The AI is stupid. It will always go for whoever's closest. Well, the majority of the time it'll go for whoever's closest. So you want to make sure that that ball of infantry is the closest thing to them. That's the first thing that they'll attack. And then these guys will get some free shots in before they figure out what's going on. Do the same with our cavalry. We'll split that in half. Now the thing about Aserai cavalry is they're not shot cavalry. So they're not like the Sturgian Dunzerks or the Imperial Cataphracts. They're not as heavily armoured. And and designed to just smash into the enemy. They are skirmish cavalry, so they've got throwing weapons, lances, swords. So what we want to do is take advantage of that by putting them in a position where they're going to get to use their throwing weapons, and they're going to get to use their maneuverability. So we're going to hide them behind the archers for now. Mainly because I still want that two-prong approach. Might move them a little further back, actually. Because then what will happen is anybody that gets tied up dealing with the archers will then get throwing weapons thrown at them from the horsemen. So if we take a look at these horsemen, look, they've got a little plinth of throwing weapons on their back. They're not as, their shields aren't as big and heavy as their imperial counterparts, so we don't want these to be slamming into them side by side. We want them to be able to get off their throwing weapons before they engage. So that should be an okay mix. So we'll go into the fight. Now, the AI for the battles in this is pretty predictable. Normally, if your strength is lower or your troop number is lower than the opponent's, then they will charge you, just because they think they have the upper hand. A good way of knowing this is if during the conversation about a battle, your option in dialogue is "we'll fight to our last drop of blood." That's a pretty clear indication that the AI thinks the computer has the advantage, and they will come to you. If you don't get that, or if you overpower or outnumber the opponent, then what will happen is they'll run away, they'll find a corner of the map to hide in, and then they'll just castle up, and you'll have to force them out. So this is fine for us for now. They're coming to us, that's great. We've got a little bit of a bluff on this hill. And as predicted, the computer will split their cavalry into 2 units. I don't know if they have, actually, because that looks like 150. They might have kept the cavalry all together. But they'll keep their archers together, and they'll keep their infantry together, and they'll all march as 1 unit. Normally it splits the cavalry into 2, but it looks like it's kept them all together this time.
Infantry! Lower arrows!
I've ordered the infantry to hold fire. That's by F4. And the reason I've done that is because when you have throwing weapons, your shieldmen will drop their shields to throw their weapons, and that can leave an opening for an archer to get a shot off, which we don't want. Here comes the charge. Now they're committed. We set our cavalry off. Oh, I wanted that horse. Come here, horsey. No, I'm not going to get it. I'll get that one. Hi guys, can I ride with you? Right, I'm down, so I can no longer participate. That's a bad thing. The Aserai will now suffer more losses than they would have done, because they'll break formation and just charge, but the damage was already done at that point. The Imperials had overcommitted. And now it's just a chasing game. So you would have noticed also that I instructed the infantry to charge. So once all of the horsemen and all of the infantry are engaged, so they've clashed into us and they're engaged, you give the command for the square formation to charge, then they'll break formation and seek out engagements. The reason we do this is because the palace guards, the axemen, will just stand in the middle of the square and not do anything until they're ordered to do something. So if you just left them there, then they just die. So we lost 91, they lost 277. The last time I played this battle, I lost 17, they lost 277. Me dying would have cost a lot of people their lives because they would have broke formation. So the archers would have run off, the cavalry would have done whatever they want to, and the infantry would have run off as well. But as you can see, just by that simple formation, we were able to take down an army that on paper should have absolutely stomped us, but it didn't. And I only killed one person, I believe. Yeah, I did. I only killed one. The rest of them were killed by the men. But you can see there, the horsemen did the most of it. The infantry did pretty well. The palace guard did pretty well. And the master archer did pretty well. Most of the deaths suffered from these guys came from the heavy infantry and the horsemen. The legionaries just fell. And they would have fell to arrows for the most part. And their archers didn't do much. Mainly because they would have focused in on that shield square. And that's the dumb thing about the sort of computer's AI when it comes to battles. Their archers will always fire at whatever's closest, so you can bait their shots out. This is super important when you're fighting somebody like Valandians, because their crossbows hurt. They do a lot of damage. So if you can bait out all of their shots onto your shields, it robs them of any sort of viability. Now don't get me wrong, the Valadian heavy crossbowman is a force to be reckoned with because he's got shield and sword. But you can still take them down quite easily. I hope that shows sort of what you can do just by placing your units in the right place and thinking about your deployment and how you're going to take the enemy down, as opposed to just straight up F1, F3 and everybody. Any questions or any specific scenarios you want me to go through, or any specific scenarios that you've had yourself, please put them in the comments below. I might do a one how to deal with Crusade archers, because they're a pain. The horse archers, sorry. But let me know in the comments below. Until next time, bye-bye.